All right. Welcome, everyone. As you're getting logged in to our webinar here today, my name is Bobby Harris. It's my pleasure to host this roundtable session. We are real excited about the 2024 UBBA Summit and Plugfest in Kansas City. Evergy will be our host utility, and we're expecting a lot of great folks to come out, utilities and executives and commissioners and technology providers, UBBA members and non-members alike. So I hope you will make sure you're registered, make sure you got your hotel room booked before the deadline passes on that. Of course, if you have any questions about the UBBA Summit and Plugfest, you can always email me at bharris@ubba.com. And so the road to Plugfest, a lot of people said, hey, why are you doing this webinar series right before the event? And really the point of this is to share with you a little bit about what UBBA members have been thinking and preparing for when it comes to the Summit and Plugfest. We are thinking about and talking about the evolution of AMI 2.0, that next generation edge computing. And there's a lot of confusion in the industry about what do we mean by AMI 2.0. There's a lot of confusion about what should it be, what should it not be. We want to be sure that UBBA and our members get to share what we're thinking. So with me today, I have four gentlemen who are going to share some insights with you on this very topic. We're going to first hear from Mo Alomar from Southern California Edison. Then we're going to hear from John Sala from Duquesne Light. And then I'm going to ask our solutions providers, Jason McClanahan from Anterix and Marcos Ribeiro from Easy Metering, to come on and really share the solution insights and what the roadmaps are looking at like and why technology needs to evolve in order to meet these utility needs and ecosystems. So I'm not going to spend a lot more time on camera or talking. I'd rather you hear from our wonderful panelists here. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Mo, and let you get started straight away, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. I appreciate it. Good morning and good afternoon for some of you on the East Coast, or if you're internationally, good evening for some of you. My name is Mo Alomar, as Bobby mentioned. I'm a principal manager here at Southern California Edison, leading the AMI 2.0 effort. I want to start with a little bit of an overview first. So if we can go to the next slide, or the next one. So I'll give you guys a little bit of history around Southern California Edison's AMI 1.0 solution. We started deploying those in late 2000, so 2008 to be exact. And it was a 5-year deployment, and so we ended right around 2013. We anticipated our meters having a 20-year lifespan, and so right around 2028, we anticipate seeing a spike in failure rates. And so they are nearing the end of life here at Edison. So we have to replace them. But as you can imagine, over the last 10 or 15 years, technology has evolved quite a bit in this space. And so what we're looking for is to realize some of those new technological capabilities in our AMI 2.0 solution, which will improve customer engagement, DER management, which you'll hear about a little bit later, and situational awareness are things that we'd like to realize in the next generation solution. Here at Edison, we have what's called the Customer Grid Edge Team, or CGE team, and that is my team at SCE. And again, we're looking to deliver a pretty transformative and interoperable, that word you're going to hear quite a bit in the next 5 or 7 minutes here, end-to-end AMI solution that's going to set the foundation for new operating and business models, ideally to enhance grid reliability and promote best-in-class customer experience. We have about 5 million customers, to give you an overview, large swath of land here in Southern California. And so our deployment is going to take several years, starting in 2028, which I'll go over the timeline in a minute. In the yellow rectangle, you have a lot of what I mentioned already. So 1.0 is becoming obsolete at SCE. There are lots of advancements in technology, as I mentioned. There's a risk because we have aging grid infrastructure. So ideally, grid edge devices can help mitigate some of that risk, assuming we do it properly. And then in California, we have very aggressive goals for carbon neutrality. So by 2045, we want to live in a carbon neutral world. And if you can imagine load flexibility downstream, upstream generation won't be burdened so much. And so that's how we tie into influencing our carbon neutrality goals in 2045. So if we go to the next slide, it gives you a little bit of an overview of our program timeline. Very high level. 2023 and 24, we did a lot of stakeholder engagement and technology planning. Market research was a large part of that tech planning and engagement. Today, we are right at the beginning of our proof of concept evaluation stage. We have our lab set up. We're ingesting product right now from vendors, our legacy meter vendors, and we're starting to test. We're going to do some limited field testing, and we are inviting vendors to give us some demonstrations as well. In the same swim lane, in the evaluation swim lane, we plan to do some field testing, larger scale, in late 26, early 27. So that's taking successful vendors and putting them out in the field to see if things work properly. The last swim lane here speaks to procurement and implementation. And so we plan to do an RFP mid 26 through the end of 26, going into 27. And what you'll see are some items that are interesting here, primarily the universal collection engine, right, which is a central system that's going to help us with interoperability, as I mentioned before. UCE, which is the acronym for Universal Collection Engine System Integration, will happen in somewhat parallel fashion. And then we don't plan to deploy our next generation meter until 2028. And that'll go for 5 or 6 years. And so 2033 is when we'll finalize or we'll finish deploying our 5 million grid edge devices out in the field. So if we go to the next slide, I'll touch on our solution vision a little bit, or the vision for our solution. Some of the solution attributes that are no regrets for us, or that are going to be very important for us, are some expanded capabilities. I mentioned at the beginning that technology has evolved quite a bit over the last 10 or 15 years. And so we don't want our next generation meter to simply be a cash register. We want to go beyond just revenue metering and service functions. And so we want, a variety of other functions as well. The second piece here, we'd like it to be flexible and adaptable. So if you think of your smartphone device with software upgrades, that's a flexibility that we'd like to have in our next solution as well. And then grid edge intelligence. I think we're all familiar with AI and ML at this point. We probably hear it on a daily basis. It's a huge buzzword. And so we'd like to take some of those ideas, advanced algorithms, so on and so forth, and make sure they're realized as well in our next solution. So those are some of the solution attributes. In terms of benefits, customer engagement, grid operations, and then I mentioned at the beginning, our state goals. So touching on customer engagement, imagine a world where on your smartphone, you're able to see real-time usage data coming from your home or small business, and you're able to see pricing information at the same time, right? Based on what your utility charges. And so customers will be engaged a great deal more in the future. That's the goal. Grid operations, for everyone manning the systems behind the scenes, assuming they get real-time data and applications to them as well, they'll be able to manage the system a lot better, right? And that improves reliability and situational awareness with a lot of that load flexibility. And how we meet those state goals is by flexing that load, because upstream generation, again, won't be as burdened. And so that's our vision in a nutshell, to make sure that we can realize some of these benefits using some of the solution attributes up above. If we go to the next slide. In 2023, we did a ton of market research, and we identified some big gaps in AMI solutions. And so we boiled them down into 3 big buckets. Interoperability is going to be big. We want to make sure that we have choice. We want to make sure that we have flexibility in our system and we're not locked in. So we need to make sure we develop standards-based software and hardware so interoperability can be realized. DERs are cropping up all over the place here in the state of California. Solar, EV, you name it, DER assets are starting to become the norm. We need a way to measure and monitor that, and we think grid edge devices can be a solution for that. And then finally, comprehensive analytics solutions. We plan to have internal folks, third-party vendors develop applications for us using this real-time data in an effort to, influence reliability on the grid and to make sure that our customers are engaged with their usage patterns in their own homes as well. So these are the gaps that we'd like to fill with our next generation solution. And I think the next slide is redundant in a sense, but interoperability, DER management, and analytics to drive home our solution vision is what Southern California Edison is after. And so, like I said, we're testing these right now in our labs with legacy meter vendors and other vendors that can prove that they can deliver on these capabilities. The next slide. Because interoperability was mentioned a number of times, we are involved in a number of different forums, including this one, where interoperability is discussed. So EEI, DLMS, and LF Energy are just a few of the forums, and this one again, like I mentioned, are just a few of the forums that we're involved where we're talking about interoperability of devices inside the home and outside the home as well. So behind and in front of the meter. If you're interested, Jared Lee on my team is leading these efforts, so feel free to email him for more information. And I think that concludes, and I'll hand it over to you, Bobby, but hopefully you guys get a sense of what we're after here at Southern California Edison. And I just want to thank you all for listening.
Thank you for that, Mo. And it really helps set the stage for us as we begin to think about how we're defining and what we as an industry mean by AMI 2.0. And I think that's a big piece of it. Certainly it has been in all of our discussions at UBBA and with our new task force. So as I said, from there, I'm going to ask John Sala from Duquesne Light to unmute and take us through what they're thinking about. Here's a different perspective from a utility on the eastern side of the world. So John, I'll let you take that away.
Thanks, Bobby. And thanks, Mo. That was a very enlightening presentation. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone on the webinar. My name is John Sala. I'm a senior manager here at Duquesne Light in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, responsible for all of our metering technology and a number of our operations solutions, as well as they align at least to our metering fleet here. Go ahead to the next slide, Bobby. And I do apologize, as luck would have it. I hope they stopped. There's a leaf blower. Someone just started using right outside the office I'm in. So hopefully it doesn't come back. A little bit about Duquesne Light, just real quick. I won't go through all the statistics. We're a little different than Southern Cal Edison in that we are a 600-ish thousand customer utility located directly in the city of Pittsburgh. We have a territory that encompasses about 2 counties. We are heavily residential, and what isn't residential is typically light commercial to medium commercial. We have very little industrial base. That's kind of important in terms of our challenges there for DI and DA. But just a couple of little tidbits I'll throw out, little selfish promotion. Pittsburgh has 446 bridges, which actually puts us ahead of Venice, Italy. And we are the largest inland port in the United States. So it's an interesting environment. Go ahead, Bobby. So we are not as far along as SCE is in our path to AMI 2.0. We we embarked in our upgrade of our first generation system, which was unique. It was we were actually fixed network from the late 1990s, but it was fixed network AMR. In about 2011 timeframe, Duquesne Light embarked upon a mandated smart meter evaluation and ultimately implemented the Gen 1 or AMI 1.0 solution starting in 2014 and finished deploying that in around 2018 with an immediate transition to some upgraded technology within that stack. So we basically arrived at late 2019 with a system that was perfectly implemented and for what it was designed to do, which was essentially provide 99.5% plus read success rate for billing purposes, implementing disconnect, reconnect processing, also customer service perspective, additional data and support of customer service. Note, I'm not mentioning anything about operational needs. At our utility during that period of time, operations was not really interested. It wasn't an important part of what they needed to do. Didn't align with their mission and direction. However, upon implementing AMI, things started to change, and all of a sudden there was this realization within the utility of other intrinsic values that AMI was believed to bring. We kind of likened that to what we call AMI 1.5. We had to get beyond billing, even though that was our mission and our success criteria. In around 2020, when we finished our full tech upgrade, we had to pivot because we had two issues that had come to the forefront. Essentially, we needed additional data for operational analysis, and we were not gathering it. So again, it was billing data. It was purpose built for that, and that was all that we were capturing. And the system was architected for that. The other problem we dealt with was we had a system that allowed us to manage the meters in a real-time way, but not provide a very effective user interface or integration layer for real-time data. And that was a problem. So everything had to go through we are an Oracle shop, by the way, had to go through our Oracle utility suite. And that integration was cumbersome. Using the actual vendor supplied AMI tool to get a little bit better data access was also cumbersome. So we decided we also needed to address that. Next slide. To get to that 1.5, which has carried us up to now, on the historic data solution, we sought an outside vendor solution. We did an RFP and selected a tool to essentially address all of the data that we were not currently gathering from our meters, so that every month we would be losing all that data. So we implemented a solution that we call the Operational Data Management System. It's essentially an MDM for data that isn't available to us in our Oracle MDM. It also brought a GUI-based ad hoc analysis front end and a number of use cases that we wanted to get right out of the gate. So upon deploying that in the 2022 timeframe and on, we were also building network connectivity validation, voltage analysis, transformer utilization, and energy usage and theft analysis. And those are interesting use cases because they're a lot of what you will be hearing about AMI 2.0, and that is the start of our journey. AMI 2.0 brings a lot of that capability as well as maybe pushing it a little bit closer to the edge, which we can talk a little bit more about today. It is built, the solution we deploy that is built on a PostgreSQL and for the UI and transactional nature of the system. And then we are using Apache Parquet with Databricks for the big data analysis. And we're right in the process of doing an upgrade to move all of that to Snowflake. Bobby, next slide. On the other side, on the real time, we actually worked with a third party to co-develop something we call the on-demand meter interrogation solution, ODMI for short. It brings, or at least initially it brought the ability to do UI-based meter interrogations to pull back things like the switch status, the current read, the if there's any load side usage going on the meter, voltage, where it is in range compared to the meter norm. And a number of other data elements. We rolled that out to about 300 and some folks within 6 different departments. We've since continued to enhance that solution. It now serves as our middleware for all of our outage management functionality. So it's receiving and sending all of our outage notifications, restoration notifications. It supports all of our programmatic meter validation, either from our OMS or other operational systems. It provides simulation functionality, which we desperately do not have with our actual AMI system to support those other systems. And we're in the process of deploying what we call a mass gap fill support. So that's helped us tremendously between those 2 applications to buy us time. That's kind of how we look at it until we can implement AMI 2.0. You want to go to the next one, Bobby? So we are probably about a year behind SCE in our life cycle, at least in looking. We're probably more than that behind if you look at it from a life expectancy. But one of the things I would note is, SCE got lucky or got very good positioning on how they did it, because we're not going to likely get 20 years out of our meters at this point. We are seeing the needs of distributed intelligence, grid edge requirements really push the lifespan, assumptions that we had. We're looking to hopefully finish some of our early assessments and piloting around AMI in the next couple years, and probably go to bid for a solution in the 27, 28 timeframe. Which would, be in about the anywhere from 13 to 15 year life cycle for us. But we are already looking at a number of AMI 2.0 considerations that we see as very important. These do mirror what Mo and the folks at SCE are looking for as well. Obviously, want as long of an effective, useful life as we can get. Certainly challenging in this environment where we're not being able to drive the life cycle. A lot of this is being driven by consumer and outside changes, which has historically not been the case. We do see the meter as a gateway device moving forward, and you could think of 2030.5 or Wi-Fi or any of those technologies. But really, we see the need to potentially have that be our DMARC. We do absolutely need increased resolution of data gathering with or without pushing more compute to the grid edge. Scalable meter communications. You can never have enough bandwidth. And that's kind of where we fit into the UBBA. I'll talk just briefly at the end of this slide about that. We are certainly interested in open communication protocols. I think that's one of the big benefits of looking at 3GPP and other private cellular solutions, is that it is an open international standard. We too are very interested in improved interoperability. That's at the meter, at the comms, at the head ends, et cetera, and that then drives obviously meter vendor flexibility. We can't have a discussion about AMI 2.0 without addressing security. That's going to be a uber important part of any evaluation we do. And as I said, we do think that there's a place for both edge computing and distributed intelligence and back office big compute and big data. So we kind of see it as all of the above. And again, in addition to more bandwidth, we do think the latency is becoming an increasing challenge, particularly for a lot of the DIDA needs. It is very important that you have more direct paths to the meters and less delay. And of course, peer-to-peer communications, because there is always going to be a need to have decision-making at the grid edge, just due to the nature of the challenges of moving the data all the way back for all decision making. So those are kind of the keys. Just a little bit of information, because this is very recent. We are just now kicking off an evaluation, a deep dive into our private LTE options here at Duquesne Light. We have engaged a third-party consultant that is just ramping up to start us on that journey. We've done some preliminary analysis over the last year with a hope of building a business case, by early next year, and seeking internal approval to consider private LTE and they haven't been determined yet, but our top use cases, obviously AMI 2.0 is in the mix, along with a number of other use cases that we're in need of a solution for. So, Bobby, I think that was my last slide.
Let's see. Yes, it was. Gosh, John, thank you. Thank you for sharing, again, a different perspective. I want to next go to our solution providers, because they've been listening intently to what our utilities are saying. And obviously this isn't the first time they've heard it, because they're on all of the UBBA working group calls, and as we've been planning for Plugfest as well. So let me first, Marcos, let me first ask you come on and give a little bit of background on yourself and easy metering. Explain a little bit about what you guys have been looking at and your evolution process for your solution for AMI.
For sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, perfect. So thank you, Bob. For me, it's a pleasure to be here and to share the information with John, Jason, Muammar, some friends we have here. And for sure, easy metering. First, a short background here. I'm an electrical engineer. I have a master in business administration and specialization in product management and financials. Yeah. And at this metering, we basically, most of the people here knows easy metering is providing connectivity for the endpoint device, mainly for smart meter applications. And of course, take advantage of our technology based on cellular broadband communication. Since the beginning of easy metering has developed everything and the solution we have, and considering the evolution of cellular technology from GSM, GPRS to 2G, 3G, 4G, and now work with solutions also for 5G. Yeah. And based on that, of course, when we are doing our internal development in order to reach the benefits of advanced metering infrastructure for utilities, we are considering all the time the experience we have with cellular. And internally, in order to try to capture some insights we have from the presentation from Wu and John here regarding difference comparing AMI 1.0 and AMI 2.0 and next generation of AMI. Normally, internally, in our discussions, we are all the time looking at for the three first main pillars of the advanced metering infrastructure. They are endpoints, meters as itself, connectivity, that is part of our solution, part of the design, and we work with cellular technology. And at the end, the software application. Why those three pillars for us is important? Because if you look at the other business or other industries, most of those guys are already take advantage of the advancement of the technology in those three main technology: software, connectivity, and end device. Why am I saying that? Because they are using, for example, in terms of the software application, everything related to cloud application, cybersecurity policies that they can apply in order to guarantee the data security during the transmission of the data. In terms of connectivity, we are all the time looking at all the best in terms of broadband capability, low latency, in order to provide real-time information from the endpoints, and also the meters as itself. If you look at the solution, we are all the time doing the development, not only now for meters, but also for other devices that you can put in the grid. We are trying to, in our network interface card, not only to have one type of connectivity for the communication of the meter, but also at least another one, just to help utility to have flexibility in order to make the communication with those end devices using all the time broadband, because for us, it's very important to keep broadband for this process. And it is important to include here something that Mo mentioned during the presentation, is to have a transversal pillar considering distributed intelligence. Because if you look at software, connectivity, and endpoints, all of them is possible to have today artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms applied in order to help utility to manage the grid effectively. Yeah, because if you look at all those things, maybe I can say 5, 6 years ago has started to be used more and more. And the evolution, the exponential evolution of those technologies is important to apply together with the advancements we have for meters, connectivity, and software. So everything we are doing right now in terms of the development in order to reach not only AMI 2.0, but AMI next generation is doing in order to apply the last technology that should be possible to integrate to the solution. Why we are doing that? Because first thing is to give the utilities the possibility to implement not only massive implementation, but also small one. Because, you know, Zimitri is a company that is working worldwide. We have different type, different size of utilities interesting in order to find the solution for the challenges that they have with the new transformation of the grid, the new dynamic of the grid, with the introduction of microgrid, but they can find a solution that could fit the commercial or the money that they can have to spend in order to do the implementation. So in our case, we are all the time working in order to help utilities to have the possibility to implement with the best technology that we can provide to them. And more than that, we are all the time also considering that we need to keep the solution we are offering for the utility to be an extension of the life on time, because, you know, in 3-4 years more, probably we have new technology, we have new ways to do distributed intelligence, and to up-to-date the solution we have sold to the utility is important for us. And of course, we can use it, do it to the connectivity that we are using all the time based on broadband. Yeah, doing remote firmware update, doing remote configuration of the end device to create more IoT device able to communicate with our solution, because it's part of the process for the utility today, not to use the connectivity only for the meters, but also for other applications that could be possible to help them to make a better management of the grid. This is the main concept that we have internally in our approach in terms of development, in terms of offers that we can show for the utilities in terms of the benefits of our solution, in terms of AMI next generation. For us, it's not a matter only to have AMI 2.0, but also for the future, that we can help utility to work in a best shape.
Excellent, Marcos. I think that's a perfect perspective. That evolution doesn't just stop with 2.0. It is the evolution wherever a utility is large or small. I'm glad you said that. I'm going to come back to that a little bit. Before I do, though, I want to turn it over to Jason McClanahan. Jason, give us a little bit about what you guys are thinking over at Anterix in relation to AMI 2.0. Take it away.
Yes, thank you, Bobby. And I appreciate you having me on the panel, as well as John, Marcos, and Mo. Thank you for allowing me to be on here with you. I have about a 20-year plus relationship with the utility industry. It's always been on the AMI and distribution automation side. I was very excited to join the Anterix organization simply because AMI 2.0 is going to be the next phase of the meter to cash evolution that Mo and John have been talking about. AMI 2.0 needs something more than a proprietary AMI network. It needs something that's based on standards and open operations that really allow the interoperability that I think both John and Mo said are necessary. But it also, I believe, is a catalyst to John's point of making meters be more fluid, more flexible. So if you think of the traditional AMI networks, be them wired or wireless, be them point-to-point, mesh, whatever they may be, the evolution that we have seen in this industry over the last 2 decades, those devices have a limited amount of capability, and I think Marcos was touching on that. The capabilities that those devices bring are limited by the proprietary AMI network that they ride over today. So when the radio that goes in the end device can become an LTE enabled network card, the interoperability, the ability to build based on standards across the world will open the door to the next piece of data and capabilities that are needed at that edge. It goes beyond the meter, I think, as Mo and John were talking about. It is more than meter to cache. The meters become a sensor. At that point, you're looking at waveform information. You're looking at information that is coming from the environment around that meter. It is exposing the edge to more information so that there can be decisions made at the edge, as well as information brought back to the enterprise to enable the rest of the business to make decisions more intelligently. This is all leading to the resiliency of the grid and helping to increase the reliability of it. Where I was mentioning joining the Anterix team, where we come into play here is bringing that broadband connectivity out to the rest of the distribution network, the transmission network, and enabling that ability to stretch further into the distribution network to the meter themselves, as well as all of the sensors that can now be placed around the network to enable those meters and the rest of the AMI 2.0 solution to make decisions. That broadband connectivity is going to be best served over a private network that is secured by the utility in their own ways and owned by the utility, so that they can provide the service that they are looking for in the high 99.999 and plus % uptimes. That broadband connectivity is best served, as I mentioned, over a standards-based network. So the ability to bring private LTE to the utility space in a broadband fashion is really where I think AMI 2.0 picks up and starts to gain its momentum. It's been a whirlwind of changes for the utility, just going from electromechanical meters to solid state meters under the glass disconnect and all of the capabilities that came along with that. This is simply the next transition in the technological world to make the utility able to keep up with the world that we are living in and creating for ourselves. Thank you, Bobby.
Absolutely, Jason. Thank you for that. And you used the transition word, and I like that. Before I transition to some questions with you guys, I want to remind everyone on the webinar that you can use your question tool there on your dashboard and type in questions if you have them for our panelists, and we'll do our best to get to them. So if you have any, just feel free to start typing. If we don't get to yours, of course, we'll follow up with you. Of course, you can come to our event and follow up in person. There's another shameless plug for the summit and Plugfest. Mo and John, Mo, you really laid out your transition plan, your migration plan. But if you guys don't mind sharing, I know it's a difficult thing to talk about challenges, but you've obviously had a lot of conversations internally already, but what challenges have you faced or have you heard other utilities facing when beginning to talk strategically about this transition from AMI as a billing tool to now this next generation of edge computing? And how did you and your teams overcome that? If you wouldn't mind, each of you speak just a little bit about that, and then I'm going to ask Jason and Marcos about that as well.
Yeah, I'll chime in first, and then John can pick up. I think some of the challenges that we faced or are facing at SCE at the initial phases of beginning the project was really around whether the technology ready or not, right? I think so. We want to do all these cool things with AMI 2.0. We want real-time data. We want to be able to study loads in homes. We want outages. We want all these cool things and capabilities, but is the tech ready? And I think we are now in the phase where we're testing a lot of that. And so, you know, we had 119 use cases on paper for the next meter. And so we huddled in a room over several months, and we whittled it down to foundational capabilities that we need. And what you saw in the presentation were just a few of the things that we'd like to realize, right? And if we can build those in to begin with, we can build on top of those over time. And so I think everything doesn't have to go into the meter right away. We don't need the Ferrari meter, you know, in 2028. But we'd like to build a base model, right, and then build on top of that. I think that's how we structured and kind of overcame some of those challenges around whether tech is going to be ready for us, you know, with the next generation meter. Hopefully that answered it. But I think that the biggest challenge was, is the tech ready for us to realize these capabilities?
Thank you. John?
Yeah, I'd echo certainly what Mo said is spot on. The tech is certainly a key part of this, and I'm reminded of an ancient Chinese insult that goes something like, "May you live in interesting times." We are in interesting times as it relates to meter technology, utilities in general, and for us, the challenges, I think, and we're certainly not through them. I think it's the journey of 1,000 miles. We're on it, but we're certainly not at the end. There's two sides to the challenges. I think you have the external challenges, and technology is certainly part of that, because we're not in control any longer as a utility on how we deploy this, how fast we deploy it, because the world is changing. Load is showing up everywhere. Demand is increasing in places we never anticipated. Generation isn't even monolithic anymore. It's all over the network. We're generating at the edge. We're consuming all over. We're adding entire homes in places where there's no opportunity for growth, but for EVs, and it essentially is adding that kind of load in a way that we don't have control, at least not in our territory. You know, people don't ask permission to go buy an EV, and so it becomes a challenge that we don't have the luxury of long-range plans the way we used to, especially when you look at what the distribution planners are doing and the folks in operations, and it's a Herculean task that is now nearly impossible to do without this data. And so that's kind of the external side. We have challenges internally as well, because, you know, the nature of metering is unique in that the technology, no matter how good it gets, there's a certain, for lack of a better word, physics in this, and I don't mean the traditional definition of physics. We just can't deploy 600,000 devices overnight. So, for us, it's a multi-year journey. No matter how quickly the tech changes, we have to deploy it over time, and then we need to try to get the longest life we can out of it. Because again, going out and visiting it is expensive, and replacing it is certainly very expensive, just from a human capital and labor perspective. So we do everything we can to, and it's a dirty word, I know, but to future-proof. So you're trying to guess where the industry is going to be 10 years from now, because that's the minimum life expectancy of this. That's probably a fool's paradise. I don't think it's possible for us to completely know. Certainly the things that Jason, Marcos talked about in terms of the tech, you can always be assured if you have the data bandwidth, you will use it. So having fat pipes, having low latency, if you can do that now, it's certainly better than not doing it. And trying to be as flexible, and this is where I think Mo's point about open standards and interoperability come into play, because those things will enable us to be as nimble and as flexible as humanly possible, given the fact that we just can't go out and physically touch these devices every couple of years, realistically. So that's kind of how I see it, at least here from the Duquesne Light perspective.
Absolutely. And you brought up a good point, both of you, about the technology being ready. Jason, I know at Anterix, you guys have an ecosystem group of partners really focused on the technologies. Talk a little bit about the technology ready and how you guys are thinking about, from the Anterix perspective, about meeting these needs of the utilities.
Yeah, that's been a very short process. I've been with Anterix a little over 3 years, and great ecosystem members such as Easy Metering and the team like Marcos is part of, as well as the major meter manufacturers, the Itrons, the Landis & Gears, the Aclaras, Honeywells of the world, all are on board with an under glass network card that speaks on private LTE networks. This, I think, is a testament to the expected transition, as we mentioned, from a proprietary network onto something that is more opens and standards based. I think John had a great comment there earlier. It's a journey, John. I think you hit on something there. This is not, and much like the AMI 1.0 evolution was, this is not something that'll happen overnight. This is something that, to Mo's point, falls on a refresh of the population of meters that are out there, either due to end of life from the network side of it or end of life from the endpoint side of it. The world of 10, 15-year refresh cycles really becomes a lot more controllable, and in the utilities mind, they're able to budget and plan for those transitions from one generation to the next, but allowing backwards compatibility and the capability of being able to get the longest life out of those endpoints as possible is where an open standards comes in. And that's where we have focused with our ecosystem. To answer your question, Bobby, the members of the ecosystem are vendors that have been serving the utility space much like everyone else has for a number of years. Those particular solutions had typically been available on a commercial carrier's network. Those are now available for the utility to bring into their private network. This brings the capability for transitioning from 4G to 5G on the utility's terms, which is yet a completely different subject on another webinar altogether. But that ability to get the longest life cycle possible out of all of the investments that the utility is making is another benefit there that just comes along as a freebie. But the ecosystem is greater than 130 members. It's something that that we have had built over the last 4 years, and it has really went crazy over the last 3 years as the utilities needs have grown so exponentially, I would say, if I could, for the last decade.
True, true. Now, Marcos, you said something in your opening about large and small. You know, I was around when we did AMI 1, and we got all that funding from the federal government, and the big utilities in the US really went, you know, 4 million AMI endpoints, and there was a hockey stick in the metering world, and everybody got so excited. We're not going to have that. And AMI and its evolution is not just a big utilities game. And Marcos, you know, talking about the technology being ready, and even for those smaller size utilities, share a little bit more what you were talking about there. I think that's important for our listeners to know that it's not going to be the same rollout as it was in 2009 and 10 and 11.
Yeah, that's correct. As I said in the beginning, the process here is Metering is a company working worldwide, not only in the West. We are facing different type of and different size of utilities everywhere. And the challenge that they have is not only technical things, but also budgetary things. You know, now it's time to spend their money directly in this type of investment in order to modernize the grid. The challenge for them it's a little bit complicated. In all the parts, we are looking for some opportunities in order to implement AMI.0 or next generation of smart meters with the same problems, with the same technical challenge that we can see in West. And of course, in order to design the solution that could cover all the spectrums from since the big utilities or co-ops, small utilities, and so on, the design of the technical solution for that is important because we need to bring for everybody the same solution. In fact, because they have the same problem. If they have the same problem, the solution should be the same for everybody. And more than that, not only to apply technical advancements and so on, in terms of the pillars I mentioned before, connectivity, endpoints, software, distributed intelligence, we need to consider in the cost for everything in order to help them to do what they are looking for. And you know, the challenge that utilities in West is having right now, that as Mo and John mentioned in terms of technical things, it's almost the same for everybody. And most of the time in our conversation with those different type of customers, they present the same situation. They are define a journey, they are define a plan in order to validate, sometimes together with other utilities, because it depends on the size. They don't have enough budget in order to do their own evaluation. Sometimes they join with others in order to work together and to use the experience of other utilities in order to try to consolidate the requirements and expectancies should be covered with the solution that we are presenting. And also ecosystem like we have today with Attendees, it is something that is spread everywhere. We can see it in Europe, we can see it in Latin America. Most of the countries are using the same approach that we have today in West in order to accelerate the process, in order to capture the best we have in each part, in order to consolidate. We can see here in the presentation of, for example, Muammar, speaking about the LMS protocol. Yeah, it's typically protocol used in Europe, Latin America, and Asia, but also now we can see some conversation discuss how should be the benefits of this technology or this process for US market. And for us, it's perfect because they are trying to look at solutions that could fit in their budget, that could fit in their budget and the expectations and requirements in terms of technical approach. For us, it's perfect. This is the right way to do the things. And I believe, and keep in mind the pillars of the AMI next generation in terms of software, connectivity, endpoints, and distributed intelligence, not only for now, but also for the future, and how to upgrade what they are doing in terms of the evaluation now for the future. It's very, very important for in terms of technology and cost for the implementation process.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We've got a couple of questions from the audience online. I'm going to read them just as they're written. And I know we only have a few minutes left, so we'll try to get to them all. Of course, you can meet with these guys in Kansas City and ask them all the questions you want to ask them. But Mo, the first question from our listeners, this person knows you well, I think, says, Mo, there are some who think that people, not hardware or software, are the key to successfully managing the clean energy transition. How does your work experience at an airline prepare you for leveraging analytics to influence and change customer behavior?
Oh wow, someone did their research. So I think that's a good question. My experience at the airline, I was both in operations and customer experience, and I think the way I can draw the bridge there is to say a lot of what we're doing is predicated on real-time data, okay, with AMI 2.0. So we all have to be prepared to ingest this real-time data and develop applications accordingly for both the grid and the customer. And so we did that, at Delta Airlines. I think it's the same, same deal, right? Where data is used by folks operationally and for the customer. So I think in totality, what I'm trying to say, or in summary, what I'm trying to say is because everything is predicated on real-time data, there are going to be tons of benefits for folks monitoring the grid, make sure our lights are coming on and we're more resilient. And we're going to enhance the customer experience. We're going to be in a world where we'll have a utility application for you all to see how much power you're using in your home in near real time and how much you owe right now. And assuming you have smart appliances in your home, you can toggle them on and off and see your bill drop in real time, right? So those are some of the things that I'd like to see. And again, that enhances the customer experience. Data is going to be, it is today, everything. And I think as a utility, we have to be prepared to harness that data in a very meaningful way, both operationally and for the customer. Hopefully I got at the answer or the question there.
I think so. And John, and everyone, I think that real-time data analytics, the availability, that edge computing, that real ability to maintain grid reliability is really the point and the key of all this. Certainly it's what we've been talking about at UBBA for the last about 18 months, that we've been talking about the next generation of AMI and grid edge computing. We are just about out of time. Before I turn off, though, I would like to just give you each, if you had one takeaway, 15 seconds, one takeaway for our listeners, what would it be? Mo, we'll start with you.
I'll just say, I think, again, like I'll just reiterate this point that we have to be prepared as, utilities, vendors, everyone in this space, to harness the power of the data that we're getting ready to ingest. So John mentioned big pipes. We got to make sure that those pipes are built adequately for us to ingest that data, and we use it properly for our customers and the utility alike. So just be prepared for a world where we're getting this data at a fast clip. Is what I'd say.
Perfect. John?
Yeah, I think I would add that the world of what was AMI is dead. Long live AMI. We are going to be dealing with a village, not a silo any longer. Just about everybody at your utility probably now has some vested interest in AMI, and it's going to only increase, and it's going to be even more critical than it was when it was the billing engine. It's going to be the billing engine, which is now table stakes, plus all of this added functionality that is literally, I believe, going to be critical to keeping the lights on for our entire customer base. It probably is not going to get much more, extensive than that within a utility. So we are SCADA now, we are billing. It's all part of the critical distribution infrastructure. Strap in and start getting exposed to it as soon as you can, and thinking about it, because it's going to take that village, and it's going to be critical that you be successful.
Excellent. Okay, less than 15 seconds. Jason first, and then Marcos, get ready.
That data that you all are referring to is going to no longer come from tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. It's going to come from millions of devices. The number of connected endpoints and pieces of sensors out there that are providing this data to keep the lights on is just going to explode. The digitization of our life is now coming to the grid.
Good point. Marcos, final word?
Yeah, keep the journey, guys. I think you are in the right way in order to be successful. And with us, ecosystem, direct conversation with us in order to help you in everything that we can do for the future.
Excellent. And so my final word, first of all, thank you, gentlemen, so much for being on today. It was a great first Road to Plugfest webinar. I really want to encourage all of you listening to please register at ubbaplugfest.org. Come to Kansas City, meet with these people, visit their exhibits in the Innovation Zone, watch Plugfest, watch our thought leadership panels. And, think about, if you're not already a member of UBBA, how can you get involved and continue this conversation? With that, I'll say thank you, gentlemen. Thank you to everyone who was on the call. I'm Bobby Harris, and it's my pleasure to thank you again. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you, Bobby.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.